What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. This is my weekly market update that I do to add value to people in my local market, but also I want to talk nationally as well. Um, this is something that I do every single week to help keep you updated on the market and what's happening. And this week I have some interesting data that I think is really going to put in perspective what's actually happening in the market. But before we get into it, guys, I would really appreciate if you ever found any value, if there's anything I've ever said that has stood out to you, if you're a client I've worked with, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so I can keep making content and bringing it to you, giving it to you raw, fresh, and just trying to add value and help. Okay, so we're gonna get into this. All right, we are going to get into this. First, I want to start off with the sales price, right? I want to start off with the median sales price. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what the median sales price is, because people try to use median and average as if they're the same thing. The median means 50% of properties sold for more than this and 50% sold for less than this, right? That's what that is. So in January of 2023, the median sales price was $352,000. And this is the entire MLS for the DFW area, right? So that's $365,000. So to give you a perspective, back in June of 2022, so about 7 months ago, let's say, the median sales price was $400,000. So that means 50% of properties were selling for more than $400,000, right? And that's dropped by about $50,000. Okay, that is huge, right? So, I mean, that's more than 10%. So more than 10% drop within that time frame for the median. But the average, okay, here's where things get crazy. The average price of a home back in June was $490,000. $490,000. Now it's dipped to $428,000. Okay, now that's the average. What I really want to get in today, though, is a lot of people are wondering, are prices really dropping? Are prices really dropping? And the answer is yes. Prices are dropping. There's a few statistics that I think are very important, okay? Back in May of 2022, homes were selling for about 3.7% above listing price, okay? 3.7% above listing price. And again, those listing prices were already high. So you had a situation, right, where sellers were saying, okay, I could pretty much sell my property for what I want at this point. Okay, so they were saying, you know what, the comps are showing that it's worth 400,000. Let's list it at 425. So the 425 was already inflated, but now you have a situation where it's being sold for about on average, around 3.5% above listing price. Okay, so that just made prices shoot up, right? So that was May of 2022. Since May of 2022, it has been on a decline fast, okay? There's not been an up month in terms of the average percentage of the original price, meaning there has not been an upturn in the average amount that people are paying above listing price. It's been down. So that was May 2022. All right. In January, the average home is selling for 6.5% below listing price. And again, okay, what this means is that if buyers, and I know that this is a strategy right now, listing agents are saying, hey, look, we don't want to list it too high. We actually want to list it a little bit below what the comps are showing and then negotiate it up. So that original listing price for many properties is probably a little lower than what the the max that they could get, right? So they're already listing it a little bit lower as strategy. And then buyers are coming in, and on average, they're paying 6.5% less than that. Okay, so just let's do some math. Okay, I'm gonna get my phone. Let's do some math. All right. On average, right now, on average, the original listing price is $485,996, and this is for the entire MLS. Local markets are going to be different, so this is why it's super important that you get information on your local market, and this is where I come in. I'm giving you general information about the MLS and the DFW area. Your neighborhood may be different. There's certain areas where it's lower, where it's higher. Okay, if you want specific information on your property, on your neighborhood, on your zip code, make sure you email me. That's robert.a.fitzpatrick@exprealty.com. robert.a.fitzpatrick@exprealty.com. I'll drop my email in the description if you need to get in contact with me for specific information on your area. But let's just take this, okay? So $485,996 is the average listing price, okay? And let's do times 0.065, $31,000, okay? That's $31,589. So homes are the average home is listing for $485,996, and on average, people are paying $31,589 less than the average listing price, right? So let's take a $300,000 property, right? $300,000 property. That's $19,500. So on average, buyers are paying $19,500 less on a $300,000 property. Now, what I want to make clear is that that's not going to be all cases, because some sellers see this data. They're listing agents putting this information in front of them and saying, hey, look, we need to get in front of this thing. Because here's another thing that I don't think many sellers consider, okay? Because, I'm just going to be real. When you're a seller, you think that you're on top of the world, that you control everything. But buyers control what properties are bought and what properties are not sellers, okay? Buyers control that. So if you're a buyer and you're looking at a property, and I had to tell somebody that reached out for help recently, I had to tell them this, okay? If you are a buyer and you see that a property has been sitting, your first instinct is not to pay that price. That's your first instinct. If you're a buyer and it's like when we go to the grocery store, right? And you go to the meat section and you see that the meat you're about to buy expires today. You're less likely to buy that meat. Why? Because many people understand that that meat is less valuable. It's been sitting for longer, and it has and the thing that goes through people's mind, there's probably something wrong with it, okay? That's like when you go into the grocery store and there's the clearance section, pay attention. The meat that's on clearance is the meat that's about to expire. Why? Because people look at the expiration date and they say, it's been sitting too long. There's probably something wrong with it. Okay? There's probably something wrong with it. That's what buyers do in the real estate market. When your property's been sitting, they think that something's wrong with it. So that drives the price down even more. So that's the danger as a seller of wanting to price your property super high, way above comps, or even at comps at this moment, because buyers are gonna look at it and say, let's see what happens with it. Many buyers are sitting on the sideline right now and saying, let's see what happens with it. Let's see what happens with it. Why? because they see the headlines that prices are going down and they want to try to catch the bottom. So if you list your property super high and it sits, what are they going to come in and do? They're probably going to try to negotiate it lower than what you would have gotten if you would have just listed it at a reasonable price to begin with. So I'm extremely cautious when I'm dealing with sellers right now in advising them to list their property at the highest range that they could probably get. Why? Because it's going to sit longer, and the longer it sits, the more emotional you're going to get as a seller, the more you're going to stick to your guns, the more you're going to feel like you wasted time. It's a pride thing. As a seller, I get it. You think your house is the best thing out there, but buyers don't see it that way. This is another property. They're looking at numbers. Their agent is looking at numbers, and they're saying, hey, look, this property is overpriced. We can get a better deal. We can wait them out, okay? Interest rates, they're fluctuating, but they're going down a little bit. We can wait them out, and we can lowball them. And what buyers see on the end of you letting your property sit on the market is you're probably a tough seller to work with. You don't want to come down on price. And there's likely either the property isn't appraising, and we'll get into this later because this is very important, okay? This is very important when it comes to your property sitting. And they just think that they can get a better deal somewhere else. So do not let your property sit on the market by overpricing it right now. I'm telling you, okay? So average property is selling for about 6.5% below listing price. Okay, I'm gonna get into some more stats that I know people like. Average price per square footage, 190. Back in June, it was 211. It's at 190, so it's went down about 21 square feet. $21 per square foot. It's went down since June. That's pretty significant. Let's just do the math on that. I like to run the numbers. So 21 square feet. So let's say that there's a $300,000 property. Okay, $21 per square footage. So you would just do 21 times, let's say a $300,000 property. Let's say that that's I would say around 1,500 to 2,000 square feet to be fair. Okay, let's use a 2,000 square foot property. So that 2,000 square foot property, 21 times 2,000 square feet. So we got 21 times 2,000 square feet. So that's $42,000. That's a $42,000 difference. So let's see. Let's go back and check the math, okay? At $211,000 or $211 per square feet times 2,000 square feet times 2,000 square feet. That means, okay, that property in June would have been worth $422,000, right? $422,000 it would have been worth back in June. That same property, same square footage, now times 211. Okay, no. So the 211, I apologize. The 211 is what it's worth right now, okay? So, oh no, that was back in June, right? So back in June, the $211 per square foot, that's $422,000. That same property, right? 2,000 square feet, and it's at 190 now. $380,000. Okay? $380,000. So that is, like I said, $42,000 difference. So the math is good. So that property back in June that you bought for $211, that same property would have been worth $42,000 less right now. Okay? $42,000 less right now. So that's the power of per square footage. Okay. So, and that's not to say that your property has necessarily depreciated that much. Well, I mean, if you tried to sell that same property, you would get around $42,000 less, right? And after commission and everything like that, you wouldn't walk away with anything really. Okay. So that's price per square footage. But what I really want to show is this. Okay. Back in July of 2022, the average day that a property was on the market was 20 days, okay? 20 days, less than 3 weeks. Now it is 56 days as of January. So it jumped up 36 days, okay? That's more than double, okay? So the average days on market was 20 back in July. Now it's 56. And here's why, and going back to what I said earlier, okay? When buyers, especially buyers that were trying to buy a year ago, they know how fast properties were going off the market. So now those same buyers are in the market, and now they see that this property on average, they're listed on the market for 56 days. They're sitting longer on the market. Again, psychologically, what did I tell you? When buyers see properties sitting on the market, they think there's something wrong with them. So if properties are sitting on the market longer, buyers are thinking there's something wrong with them, which is driving the price even further down. And guess what? A large reason, in my opinion, why properties are sitting on the market longer goes back to the stat I told you, okay? The average home is selling for 6.5% less than the original listing price. If you've ever been in a real estate negotiation, you know that those things take time, okay? Most sellers are not going to, okay, yeah, boom, they're $30,000 off the price. Yes, I'll fix this. Yes, I'll fix that. Yes, I'll do this. Yes. Most sellers are not, yes. They're going to take their time. They're going to complain. They're going to hold back. They're going to, oh, I have 3 offers and I'm going to wait 3 weeks to try to see blah, 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 right? It's not as smooth as it was. So what ends up happening is, in order to get down to that 6.5% below the average listing price, that takes time. Okay? The more you're negotiating, the more time it takes. So this is good for buyers, really, because you know that sellers are negotiating. But this is why you need a real estate agent that knows how to negotiate, because these sellers are not just going to give away equity in their property. Like I said, the sellers think, especially with the market that we just had, that their property is the best thing since sliced bread, right? Let's be real. Some of these properties we've been seeing sell for high prices. You wouldn't have bought that property if you didn't think that the market was going to keep going up and up and up and up and up, and you'd be able to cash in, right? So understand something. If you are trying to buy in this market, sellers are negotiating. Okay, it may take a little time. You may have to wait on them, but they are negotiating. Don't be afraid to put a lower offer in. Don't be afraid you're going to lose that property. Again, you hold a little more power as a buyer now than you did 6 months ago, a year ago, because you understand the numbers. This is why the numbers are important, okay? Let's look at the median, okay? Again, median is 50% of properties over and 50% under. The median is 39 days. That means 50% of properties are on the market for 39 days. Okay? 50% of the properties are on the market for 39 days or more, 50 below 39, okay? Back in June, it was 8. 50% of the properties were on the market for 8 days. All right, so here's an interesting stat as well. The inventory actually went down by half a month in January, okay? Inventory went down by half a month in January. In my opinion, this happened because some of these negotiations were taking longer and were feeling the effect of it, okay? Also, you have interest rates that went down, so people probably swooped in and got some of that inventory, gobbled it up while interest rates went down a little bit. Also, tax season, things such as that, right? So there's a lot of factors that could have went into that. I don't expect it to keep declining like that. I expect it to kind of even out or maybe even go up a little as we see sellers. Actually, it'll probably even out a little more. I think sellers, there's enough data for listing agents to show sellers, hey, look, here's what's going on. Here's how long properties are sitting. You only stand to lose if you let your property sit a little bit longer. I think it'll even out a little bit more. Here's an interesting stat, though, that I think many people don't pay attention to. The showings per listing and the showings to pending, okay? So right now, the showings to pending are 18 and a half, okay? So it takes 18 and a half showings to get a pending. But the average amount of showings per listing is around 6.5. So what does that mean? If it takes around 18 showings to get to pending and the average showing per listing is only 6, that means many properties are not even getting enough showings to go into pending. Now let me explain what pending is. Okay, so a property starts out as active. It's active on the market, meaning it's not under contract. Then it typically goes, when somebody puts it under contract, it goes from active to active option contract, okay, in the DFW area. Active option contract or active contingent. Active contingent is this property is contingent upon something else happening. Typically, it is another property selling, okay? And if that other property doesn't sell, then they cannot move forward with this one, okay? But active option is there's an option period where you pay a fee, and during that period of time that you've paid for, you can back out of the contract for any reason. This is typically when buyers go in and get their inspections done. They use a fine tooth comb to go through the property. Pretty much this is when you see what problems there are with the property and you try to negotiate repairs, right? After it moves from the active option period into pending means that you're past the option period, right? And you've decided that you're going to move forward with the property. And this is where banks start processing the loans. This is where appraisals take place. This is where documents are got. This is where title work starts taking place during the pending phase. So if it's taking an average of 18 and a half showings to get to pending status, and there's only on average 6 showings per listing, what this is telling me is a couple things, okay? During the active option period, when negotiations are taking place for repairs or, changing the price, sellers and buyers are not negotiating effectively, okay? There's a disconnect. Buyers likely want sellers to pay for certain things, and sellers don't want to pay for certain things. They may ask for concessions. They may ask for certain things, and they're not getting them. Because if you cancel or if you back out of the contract during your option period, it doesn't go into pending. So that lets me know negotiations are falling apart in the active option period and you're not making it to the pending status. And this is important to understand because as a buyer, you cannot get emotional. You cannot sit there and say, oh, well, I have these negotiations, I have these requests, and they're not doing them, so I'm going to move forward with the deal even though I know what this property is worth and I know that I'm going to overpay. No, move on to the next property, okay? The data shows that you have that ability right now. Sellers are negotiating, but you're going to run into some sellers where they're not willing to negotiate and they think that, like, I'll give you an example. I was dealing with a person recently where they had their property listed since August of 2022, and they listed it high, dropped the price, raised the price, and then they're so stuck on their property is worth $425,000. That's what they think. Their property is worth $425,000. The comps are showing that it's closer to between 380 to 400,000. That's what the comps are showing. So again, going back, there are some sellers where you say, well, why do you think that your property is worth this? And they just feel like that's what it's worth. Okay, there's no matter how many numbers you show them, they're going to feel like this is what their property is worth, and they're not going to listen. And what's going to end up happening is, like you've seen, like this property, it sat since August, and even still, and here's the thing. There are some sellers where when the property sits, their pride is on the line now. Their ego hurts, okay? They were wrong. And so they stick to their guns. No, I'm going to sell it at this, or I'm not going to sell it at all. But here's where I sit back as a real estate agent and I think, okay, so you've been paying for this mortgage, and this property is vacant, by the way. So they're paying for the mortgage and paying to stay somewhere else. You've been paying the mortgage since August. So let's say, and if this is let's just say that this property has an $1,800 mortgage on it. Okay, I think that's fair. $1,800 mortgage. So we have August, September, October, November, December, January, February. 6 months times 6. Okay, that's $10,800, right? That's $10,800 that they've lost by paying the mortgage that long, on top of the utilities and things like that. But we'll just keep it at $10,800. Okay. So if they would have taken that $10,800 off the price of the $425,000, 10,800, 425,000 minus 10,800, that would be $414,200. Still not at the 400,000, but here's the thing, okay? That 425 already overpriced. Already overpriced. Okay? If they would have, because here's the thing as well, okay? If they would have listed that property closer to what it's actually worth, they would be able to sell, because they want to sell the property. They want to sell the property, but the thing is that they've overpriced it and now they feel stuck. They don't want to come down to the actual price. Great. Okay? But what's going to end up happening is that property is going to sit for even longer. They're going to negotiate it down. If they sell it, the property's not going to sell for that. It's going to get negotiated down. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to have paid so much in mortgage by the time it sells that they should have just listed it for what it was worth to begin with. On top of that, okay, you have, and this is a vacant property where the owner is in another location, right? They're not, let's just say they're not even in the vicinity of this property. During that time frame, you risk squatters coming in, okay? You risk damage to the property because nobody's looking after it. All of these things that you're not taking care of. We've had winter storms and things like that where the temperature's gotten very low, and maybe there's a pipe that if you were there, you would have noticed the damage. All of these things, okay, that some sellers are not thinking about, that go into the price being driven down. So I say all that to say, if you're trying to sell your property, you have to be very strategic, because nothing is worse to a seller than a buyer that is empowered by data. Okay? Months ago, last year, they were not empowered by data. I'll tell you why. Because we would run a comp analysis and we would see this property is showing, based on the comps, it's worth $400,000. But we know, based on the data, that people are going to be offering $10,000, $20,000 above. So if you want this property and you want to be competitive, you're going to have to offer $10,000, $20,000 above. Right? That's what the data was showing then. And buyers were saying, okay, I'll do that. Right? And there were some buyers that they were reluctant at first. Nah, I think I could come in. But then on the 7th offer, they're defeated. Okay? They're down in the dumps. So that's why it's important to look at the data. Look at the data to make decisions. If we see that properties are selling for 6.5% below the listing price, then we know that we can come in and put an offer below listing if the comps are showing, right? If the comps are showing. Because what many people try to do is they try to, oh, well, the comps are showing it's worth $400,000. I'm just going to automatically take $20,000 off. Not a good strategy either. You need to understand whether this property is being listed above what the comps are showing or below. If it's being listed below, then maybe it's not a good idea to come in and keep trying to push. Maybe we need a strategy where we give them what they want up front and we negotiate the price down on the back end when it comes to repairs and things like that. If everything's good with the repairs, there's no major things that need to be taken care of. Look, you got a property below what is showing, below what the comps are showing. Be happy with that, right? It just comes down to strategy. That's why you need an agent that understands the market and understands how to read this data. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. In January, we did have an increase of pending sales. It was at 6,233. It jumped up to 9,076. Again, I think that that's due to the interest rates going down a little bit, tax season. However, okay, closed sales went down by about 3,000. Okay, so pendings went up, but sales went down. And so that's an inverse relationship. Sales went down and pendings went up. So what that tells me is, although pendings went up, those properties aren't necessarily selling because likely during the pending stage, many borrowers were not able to qualify, or something happened where the interest rate got locked and it was too high, and here's another one. The homes weren't appraising, okay? That's a big one, because typically if a home does not appraise, the bank will only lend you what the home appraises for. And many contracts have built in them that if the home doesn't appraise and the seller doesn't want to bring the price down, that they can walk away from the deal and get their earnest money back, right? A year ago, buyers were signing appraisal waivers. An appraisal waiver pretty much means if this property appraises for $400,000 and the sales price is $420,000, the bank will give me up to the $400,000 or whatever, and I'll bring the difference between what the bank gives me and this is on top of the down payment that you already have, right? I'll bring the difference. That's an appraisal waiver. Many buyers are likely not signing appraisal waivers at this time because they have more negotiating powers. So if buyers say, you know what, I think it might appraise for $400,000. Let's do $400,000. It comes back and the trend is down and it appraises for $380. Seller says, go to hell. I'm not lowering it to $380. I'll get somebody else. Boom. Okay. Now they back out. That's also contributing, in my opinion, to houses sitting on the market for longer, is because the properties aren't appraising. Sellers don't want to bring the price down. Buyers go back in the market and then they go and get a different property, right? And then what the seller ends up doing eventually is lowering the price after 2 or 3 weeks of no showings, because here's another thing, okay? And this, I think, is one of the top reasons why sellers end up coming down, is because if your property goes into active option contract status or pending, and then it comes back on the market as active, as an agent, my first response is there's either something wrong with that property that the seller did not want to fix, or the property did not appraise and the seller does not want to bring the price down. Okay? Because especially if I see a property that was active, let's say it's $400,000, right? This property is $400,000. It goes into pending status. And then after pending status, it's still the same price. That lets me know that the property likely appraised at below that amount and they didn't want to bring the price down, right? That's what that tells me. And the telltale sign of this is if a property goes from pending to active and then it sits for about 2 or 3 weeks and then there's a price drop, that lets me know that the property likely did not appraise and that seller is now going to bring the price down because it didn't appraise and they want to bring it down to a price that it's actually going to appraise for. Appraisals are huge in real estate. Do not think that just because you say that this property is what, and here's the thing, and that's why I was trying to tell the person that, you know, their property was sitting for 6 months. Even if somebody gives, or even if somebody offers you $425,000 for your property, but the comps are showing that it's $380,000 to $400,000 and it appraises at $400,000, you just wasted all that time just for them to come back and tell you they're gonna need to lower the price. And what? You're gonna say no, and then the property's gonna sit even longer, right? It's gonna sit even longer. So make sure you understand and price your property correctly, right? Super important. Super, super important. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for watching this video. If there's anything that I can do for you, make sure you email me. I'm going to put my email in the description. I'm going to put my website in the description. If you are thinking about buying or selling a home, go on my website. I have a free tool that allows you to put your address in and get a quick valuation of your property. Of course, I would need to come out and look at it to make sure it's as accurate as possible, but it just gives you something quick, a general number to let you know what you might be able to get for your property. You can also look on my website at all the listings in the DFW area, schedule showings through there, and if there's anything that I can do for you, please let me know. If you found any value in this video, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. All right, my name is Robert Fitzpatrick. Thank you for watching.